Benjamin sat at the corner of the street in the ever-restless, ever-breathing city of Lagos, his whole body drenched in sweat, his shirt clinging to his back, and his legs trembling from exhaustion. The day had drained him completely. It had been one of those long, punishing days where nothing seemed to go smoothly. At several points, he had almost given up, convinced he wouldn't be able to sell off all the plantain chips he carried. He had left home late, the sun had been merciless, and he didn't see any of the Christian drivers that offered the usual free lift. With a heavy heart and an even heavier sigh, he boarded a bus that charged him 500 naira. The previous bus he saw had charged only 400 naira. He had tried to wait for luck, to wait for a miracle, to hope for a free ride, but luck wasn't on his side today. The tray of plantain chips had pressed down on his neck with a weight that felt almost personal, as if the world itself was leaning on him. It felt heavier than it had ever felt before. He had walked long kilometers under the scorching sun of Lagos, shouting at the top of his voice, "Sweet plantains here, and healthy plantains here." His throat was sore, his voice cracked several times. But he kept pushing, kept hustling, because that was the only thing he could do. When he finally counted the money from the day's sales, he tied it neatly inside a black nylon and tucked it carefully between his buttocks. Lagos wasn't a place where you moved carelessly, not unless you wanted your sweat and your survival snatched from your hands. With the number of thieves, area boys, and random criminals roaming the streets, hiding money in your pocket was the same thing as donating it. He headed to the bus stop, where, like other street hawkers, he could catch the back of a moving truck. Trucks were a cheaper way home, your bones suffered, but your wallet survived. That was where he ran into his mother. She smiled when she saw him, and just from his empty tray, she already knew he had sold everything. She too had sold all her goods. His younger sister, Benita, was with her, and she too had sold out. It was one of the few small victories the day had given them. As they sat at the back of the truck, packed tightly with other tired hawkers, Benjamin suddenly felt sadness sweep over him again, quietly, heavily, the type that sits on your chest. He stared at his mother, watched the breeze brush softly across her tired face, watched the lines time and suffering had carved into her skin. This was never the life he wanted for her, not for his sweet sister, not for himself. There had been a time, not too long ago, when life had been good to him, when the world had opened itself up like a gift. Seeing him now, sitting on the back of a truck with an empty tray, no one would ever believe that just a few years ago, he had been worth more than 3 billion naira. At age 24, he had been richer than most of the self-acclaimed millionaires in his hometown. He had owned multiple fashion houses with almost 100 workers. He had fleets of luxury cars, houses scattered around. Women wanted him. Young men envied him. He was on top of the world. Until everything collapsed. He hated remembering. He fought those memories every night, prayed to forget, begged God to wipe the past from his mind, but the past always found a way back. And as he sat in the back of the truck, the night wind brushing his face, his mind drifted, slowly, painfully, back to the beginning, back to where it all started. It had rained heavily on the day Benjamin's father died. He was only 15 then. He had returned from his jam lesson, expecting the usual quiet home, but instead he walked into a house overflowing with people and tears. Everyone stared at him with pity, raw, overwhelming pity. His mother was on the floor, wailing with a grief that shook the walls. His sister cried uncontrollably. His father had simply slumped and died, no sickness, no warning, no pain. His heart had just stopped. Benjamin felt anger before he felt anything else. He was angry at God, angry at life, angry at the entire world, and even angry at his father for leaving them behind with no preparation. His jam examination was just 2 days away. But when he sat for the exam, the questions looked like an alien language. His mind was too broken to function. He left the hall knowing without doubt that he had failed. Benjamin's mother had been a sit-at-home wife before her husband's death. She knew nothing about business. She had no skill, no trade, no plan. The money they got from selling his father's old, rickety car finished quickly. With advice from a friend and the last remaining funds, she bought children's clothes from the Lagos market and started selling them around the neighborhood. At first, days would pass and she wouldn't make a single sale. But slowly, painfully, she began to get customers. Eventually, she rented a small shop where she sold children's clothes, toys, and soft drinks. She knew she couldn't send Benjamin to university yet. But she also knew he loved fashion. He had an eye for it. So she went to Madame Ruth, a woman in her church whose husband owned a popular tailoring shop in Lagos. She begged her. Madame Ruth's husband agreed to have Benjamin as an apprentice for a fee. With the little she had left, she paid. And Benjamin began his apprenticeship. It was tough. He made many mistakes. The other apprentices laughed at him. His master, a man Benjamin once thought was kind-hearted, would shout at him for any slight error. Yet Benjamin held on. He wanted to become big. He wanted to design clothes that would turn heads. He wanted to make his mother proud. So he tried harder. Worked harder. Stayed longer hours. And slowly, he improved. He learned to use the sewing machine well. His mistakes reduced. He started coming up with designs that even his master admired. He dreamt of owning a giant fashion house someday where celebrities and important people would beg for his creations. Then one day, he saw Jacob. Jacob was his old primary school friend, the skinny boy everyone bullied except Benjamin. But the person standing before him wasn't skinny anymore. He was bigger, healthier, fresh-looking, dressed in designer clothes, and carrying expensive phones. He looked rich, too rich for an 18-year-old. They exchanged numbers. That night, Benjamin messaged him. Jacob replied immediately. They talked for hours. Then Jacob invited him over the following week. The apartment stunned Benjamin. A neat, sparkling one-bedroom situated in one of the nicest parts of Lagos. Expensive furniture. Nice gadgets. Everything screamed money. That night, Benjamin couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling wondering how someone his age could afford that kind of life. He wanted it, desperately. He became restless. He made mistakes at the shop. He couldn't focus on sewing anymore. He wanted money, fast. He started visiting Jacob regularly. Eventually, he discovered the truth. Jacob was a fraudster, a Yahoo boy. He scammed foreigners online and made huge money. Benjamin wasted no time, he begged Jacob to teach him. Within a month, Benjamin understood the basics. He searched the internet 24 hours in a day. He barely slept at night. Soon, he abandoned the tailoring shop completely. Then he hit his first victim. It wasn't big, it was a few dollars, but it was more money than he had ever seen in his life. He bought new clothes and shoes. Then he met bigger scammers. They taught him deeper techniques. He spent entire nights awake searching for victims. Then he struck gold. A victim, a petitioner, was scammed of $60,000, about 90 million naira. He got his share, more than half of the money. He bought a car. Rented a luxurious apartment. Opened a large fashion house on Lagos Island. Rented a bigger store for his mother. Paid his sister's school fees. Every time his mother asked how he suddenly became rich, he lied. He said he was real estate agent. He soon added fetish practices to attract victims. And everything went well. 4 years later, at age 22, Benjamin was already a multi-millionaire. He had boys working under him. He had connections everywhere. He bought properties in nearly every state, all in his own name. Girls wanted him. Guys envied him. People called him Benji Currency. Life was sweet, he felt blessed. His 24th birthday party was a massive event. Nigerian celebrities, influencers, rich Lagos big boys, and top fraudsters were present. Among them was the infamous Wire Lord, a feared and extremely wealthy scammer. Wire Lord didn't only scam individuals, he defrauded government agencies and large companies. He was also a top member of a deadly mafia called Machete. Even the police feared them. Wire Lord approached Benjamin privately. He didn't need to introduce himself. Benjamin knew him immediately. He told Benjamin about an upcoming scam, the biggest he had ever attempted. He gave Benjamin the brief and the risks involved. Benjamin refused at first but later changed his mind the moment he heard the amount involved. $2.9 million, which was about 4.4 billion naira. His share would be about $580,000, which was about 870 million naira if everything went well. In Wire Lord's luxurious guest house, the operation began. It took more than a month. Then the money dropped, $2.9 million straight into Benjamin's account. It was the most money he had ever seen or touched in his life. He took his cut of $580,000 and sent the rest back. There were very few 24-year-olds that could boast of having about a billion naira in the cryptocurrency, but Benjamin had more than that kind of money. He bought more properties, luxury cars, jewelry, gadgets. He traveled, partied, posted on social media. Money was nothing anymore. Until everything fell apart. 2 months after pulling the biggest scam of his life while relaxing in one of his many grand hotels in Lagos, the door suddenly bursted open. 2 men suddenly rushed at him and pinned him to the ground. Benjamin couldn't see them clearly, but he noticed there weren't just 2 men. They were about 10 of them, all wearing simple clothes and a red sleeveless jacket. From the corner of his eyes, he noticed the word EFCC on the jacket. He knew it stood for Economic and Financial Crime Commission. He didn't understand what was going on. He made sure to send his bribe over to their boss every month. Why were they here? Was it a mistake or something? He got handcuffed. As he was being led out of the hotel, he noticed Nigerian police officers with them, all dressed in police uniforms. The police too? He bribed them regularly too. Who wanted him arrested? And then he saw them. Seated in a black SUV parked close by, he saw 3 white men. They looked like Americans. They had to be American, he thought. One of them alighted the vehicle and Benjamin's heart skipped a beat. The American wore a white shirt and black plain trouser, and he wore a black vest boldly written, FBI. Benjamin ended up in the interrogation room of the EFCC. The FBI agents had begun investigations after $2.9 million was stolen from a big real estate firm in the USA. They tracked and were able to link the theft to Benjamin. The FBI, with all the evidence, they had contacted the Nigerian authorities, who were very cooperative. The EFCC began investigations. The evidence provided by the FBI was overwhelming. The FBI agents flew into Nigeria and joined hands with the EFCC and Nigerian police, and Benjamin was tracked down. The FBI, however, knew he didn't carry out the scam alone, but they couldn't place their hands on his accomplices and the brain behind the scam. Unknown to the agents, Wire Lord had secretly contacted Benjamin while in custody. A picture of his mother and younger sister in a confined room was showed to Benjamin with a promise to have them killed if Benjamin mentioned his name. Benjamin was promised a reduced sentence if he gave the names of his accomplices and the brain behind the scam. But he knew his mother and his sister will be murdered if he spoke. He couldn't let that happen. He couldn't let them get killed for his crimes. It was his cross to bear. The FBI requested that he be extradited and serve his sentence in the United States. The Nigerian government refused at first, but after much pressure and persuasion from the United States, the Nigerian Federal High Court held an extradition hearing. The court and the Attorney General both approved, and the process began to have him serve his sentence in the United States. Wire Lord visited him a day before his extradition. He promised to take good care of his mother and sister. As Benjamin sat on the plane taking him to the United States, he said a silent prayer to God to help him. In the United States, the court process was fast, evidence were presented, and Benjamin got 10 years. Exactly 8 years and 6 months later, at age 32, Benjamin sat in the immigration detention of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. He was awaiting his deportation process. He had served only 85% of his sentence and was released earlier on grounds of good behavior and good conduct time. After a week in detention, he was escorted by 2 mean-looking ICE officers to a plane. When he arrived in Nigeria, EFCC officers were already waiting for him. he was taken to their office for questioning and then released. Nigeria had changed so much in his eyes, harsher, older, almost unfamiliar. His mother and sister received him with tears. But the reality was painful. Benjamin had nothing. No money. No property. The government had frozen his accounts and seized all his assets. Everything had been in his name, making it easy to confiscate. His old friends abandoned him. His mother's business had collapsed. She had spent everything trying to get him out of jail. With nothing left, she and his sister had turned to hawking fried plantain chips. Benjamin searched for a job, but he had no skills anymore, no money, no connections. He stayed home depressed until his mother encouraged him to join them in hawking. And that was how he ended up at the back of the truck, sweaty, tired, broke, but alive. As he sat at the back of the truck, he told himself that he'd try not to ever think of all he had gone through in the U.S. federal prison. He would try not to drown in memories of his lost wealth. He reminded himself that life wasn't over. Somewhere inside him, a fire still burned. A quiet voice whispered that he still had a chance and he would rise again. This time, he would do it the clean way, the honorably way, this time in a way the world would celebrate and not condemn. And he believed it. Thank you for staying till the end. Please like, share and subscribe to this channel for more stories like this.